So I want to welcome Fabian Beck to come to our workshop.
Welcome everybody. I started aquascaping around 10 years ago, created the crazy amount of 175 aquascapes. My dream was to one day reach the top 100 in IAPLC contest, and then I did lots of research. It's important that with the first impression that you give, there is something interesting in it. The easiest to achieve that is by huge hardscape. So what we have here, plants. For sure. I mean, it's called the biggest contest, the International Aquatic Plant Layout Contest. So plants are obviously very important. Tree composition is one of the most important things. Perspective, depth is also very important. Contrast in colors. It could also be that the colors are not like such a very heavy contrast, but a natural contrast. Roots could be interesting. Stones could be interesting. Healthy plants is very important. So it's cool that you not only think about the layout itself, but about the health of the whole system. Flow is something that I really like. So what do you think is the most important part about dedication? The time it consumes and the frustration to get over it. That's like, you really need a lot of dedication. Shades, for example, can also be a very big impact. So fish is also super important, especially because I'm a fish lover. Fish choice is one of the most difficult things. Thank you everybody for writing so many things. Okay, and then we come to the contents of this workshop. First of all, I show you some inspiration from the real world. Taking pictures in nature can be very inspiring. We take a deeper look onto like just 2-3 pictures and see what is working with these pictures. What can we use from these pictures and what would not work in contest aquarium. I often work like taking a picture, for example, as a main inspiration from the beginning. And then I just try to take the picture and I can show you how I find inspiration and ideas to complete the visual concept. So we merge all the elements, the inspiration that we initially find, plus all the additional material that I find online, for example, and make a concept together. Then we find the right plants together and see what we can see. Then I would say, if you don't have any questions so far, we just jump into topic 1. And I show you first, very briefly, how I did exactly that with my 2024 IAPLC layout. And this was basically the first inspirational picture. I was on Yakushima Island in Japan and found this beautiful scenery. And in the beginning, when I took the picture, I just liked the scene, but I haven't thought about this being potentially a nice aquascape. But when I scrolled through my pictures in my photo app, I suddenly realized that there is a very interesting spot. I wanted to see, because my tank has dimensions, I wanted to see which part is the best part. And I decided that this could be a very interesting part for my aquascape. I took the picture, I created an image in Photoshop that was the dimensions of my tank. And then I just copied this layer from the photo app onto here to know, okay, this could be fitting in. So here I was thinking, like, how could I bring this nature scene into an aquarium? I'm standing maybe 2 meters from this rock away, and this rock over there is maybe already 8 meters in the back. So all we can do is see how can we really get this into an aquarium. And then I basically start to draw lines first. And for me, this here is really showing where the eye is drawn, because you have these lines here. I mean, from underneath this little tree here, the line looks like it's going towards that direction. And the right side, the stone on the right side, also gives some guidelines towards this. So I was directly sure that if I want to bring this into an aquarium, I really need to think how I could bring this triangle shape into an aquarium. If you look into nearly any picture where there is not too much going on, maybe there's also pictures where you don't see it that well, but in a lot of pictures you can very easily find triangles, and that really helps to see how high do I have to create the background and stuff. And then obviously there is these 2 big branches. So next thing is, what is the weaknesses of this picture? There is no depth. The stones in the back look nearly as tall as the ones here in the frame. And there is not much space for plants in the foreground. And it's the aquatic plant layout contest. So I was really thinking, okay, I do this for a specific contest. There is 10 people sitting there, and these people have a specific taste on the one hand. And if you know the judges a bit, you can get to know them by watching the results from previous years. I basically started complementing what I had in mind. So this is just the cropped image. And then at the beginning, I thought, okay, which other source of inspiration could I use? And in the very beginning, it was very easy because I just simply took my scape from the year before. I basically used from my 2023 layout the top third of the tank. And I thought instantly, okay, this kind of looks like it could be an interesting aquascape, but I don't want to do the same thing that I did last. I used exactly the same image, mirrored it the other way around and made it a bit smaller. And then it looked like this. The structures in the background are kind of tall. I made it a bit smaller, everything. It instantly felt like, okay, now I can see the depth. It was really hard to find something that I really thought could work out. And then at the end, I used 3 different pictures from 3 other aquascapes. And I thought it's pretty interesting that there is suddenly, where the eye is drawn, then there is suddenly a drop. It feels like there could be a hole, right? There is nothing behind the stones. I really like that the idea that the fish swim out there, because that's somehow creating some tension in the tank. And then I also like that the end point, the focal point, it's not this typical, it's not like this small path that you see often, yet somehow there is some holes where you can even imagine that something is swimming through, or might be a path that you can walk. And I thought, okay, I give that a try. It took me a long time to find out which materials could be the right material. But then I started making plan choices and began with the realization. It was very impressive to see how close I, at the end, really was to what the concept was in the beginning. So I was in Japan very recently. That was in Nagano Prefecture. So it's basically a bit like the mountains here. It's maybe even a bit higher. So this was about 1,300 meters. And it was a very beautiful walk. There was a gorge and we were walking past like 10, 12 little waterfalls. The biggest difference, also mostly to the nature I could find here, was that the trees do not grow in soil. They seem to grow on rocks. This is probably, I think it's even the biggest tree in Japan. The tree is estimative 1,300 years old. So this is another tree, kind of similar picture. And this was in the ancient cedar forest. I was very blessed to be there actually, because this forest allows 200 people per year to go into the forest. You basically walk a path that not many people are walking. And you can tell because the path itself is not like a real path. You really basically walk above plants, and it was really, really nice. This is a bit different from the other pictures, yet I liked that there was some other plants clearly visible, like some ferns in the bottom and stuff. So I thought it would be also nice to bring some more lighter tones into the aquarium. And this kind of felt like half of the tree fell a bit down and then created this very interesting spot. So we talked about shadows earlier. There are shadows there. One of these pictures to me feels like they are a complete inspiration. They all have weaknesses. I mean, there were interesting trees, but how would you put like just a stone and a tree standing tall wouldn't make an interesting aquascape instantly. For me, it was like this time, honestly, I was specifically on the holidays trying to make a nice picture or find a nice picture, like a nice inspiration for the workshop, but it was really hard to find something. Sometimes the tree is just falling to the wrong side, or there is so much other things in the way that make it really difficult. In order to optimize it for a contest, you have to make up your mind for how could you bring the inspiration source that you have. Could you bring this into life and into a nice concept for a cool aquarium. I wanted to have a path in the aquarium. I had something in mind already at this point, how I could do something. So I was looking basically for landscape pictures, and this is a picture from a website called ArtStation.io. There is lots of people there showing sketches for computer games, for example, and I really like it a lot and get a lot of inspiration from that. It's really helpful, and for this specific picture I thought that especially the part in the foreground would be interesting, because in the background it has nothing to do with lots of trees in that case, but the foreground could be interesting to create an path that is a bit different from the paths that we can see quite often in aquascaping. A very brief first idea. So I showed you the inspirational picture. I know that there are people that create amazing aquascapes with straight lines going vertically up, but for me somehow I don't feel it. Okay, what could I do with this idea? I just tilted the picture a bit, and then I immediately thought this could be more interesting. It has more impact. There's something falling. So the picture has no shadows, but in an aquarium, when you tilt something so heavily, there will be shadows underneath. Basically have two branches, a bit difficult to show, but if you imagine this in this aquarium here, I thought about the right tree, growing from here, but it fell into this direction. And then another tree that is here, that is the left side, that once upon a time, maybe 100 years ago, fell into this direction. I also thought that it really has to have like a nicer flow, so that both of the lines from this tree here and this line here gives some interesting guiding lines as well, because guiding lines are super important. And now I really shortly want to show you how I do that. I just throw in all the inspiration that I find. So basically, you can see on the bottom right, there is all the different layers of the image, and you just throw the pictures in, and some of them now appear in the background because they're behind each other. Sometimes when there is too much in the picture, it can also disturb, and you don't really get the grip on how could I use this for my concept. I did the same thing with this here, and I'm not gonna show how I cut everything out, because this basically takes quite a long time. But what I can show you is this picture. I created this here. I already said that I can obviously simply rotate the picture, and then I use something, and I quickly want to show this because this would be very helpful, I think, to create something. You basically create a mask, and then you can either create rectangular masks like this, then you can also use freehand masks, but you can basically draw here and you get kind of a good mask, and then you can simply cut that out, and then you can really use the image that you have very easily to bring stuff and ideas together to get a good composition. You can basically also bring two pictures together. I'm using this picture here. I put everything a bit to the side so it's understandable a bit better. I want to blend these two things together. I basically make a mask about what's overlapping. You basically go to the mask that you created. We created the mask. I hope it's very nicely visible, but you can see the mask here, right? And so now I'm gonna change this mask, and I give it a soft edges, kind of. You can give it like maybe 25 pixels, for example. Then you can still move the mask a bit, but now you should be able to see if I delete this mask with this softened edges, you can see that it's blending together basically. I did this with a lot of pictures, with all the inspiration pictures, with all the other pictures that I got, and I put something together. Sometimes you also have to do this 5 times to be able to find out how big the mask should be, how big of the soft edges you need. But that at the end, I basically did the same thing. So I put this together quite often, and then this is the original tree. It's falling that direction, and I also added some more branches. So this is basically the original picture, and you can see on this area here that I was using parts here and also to extend this branch from this picture. Sometimes it's really difficult for me by using Photoshop. I basically made a sketch by hand. I think it still shows what you saw in the picture before, a bit more detail. But at one point I decided that I stopped putting everything together from other sources, and I really want to get creative myself and see where my ideas flow. So I think from time to time it's really good to just make it the way I make it, and then from there start to sketch some. Does this concept have everything a good contest layout needs? We collected all the information before, like all the ideas and all the important things for a contest. We should discuss, is there a clear focal point? I think it's not too easy to see this directly here, but it's also just a brief sketch. So we're gonna have some bigger rocks here, and we're gonna create depths by this tree is falling to the back of the tank. So we're gonna have a slope here, and work our way more and more, and we get more precise in the thought process on the one hand, but also hands-on in a few minutes. I think we're gonna have a good focal point, but we really have to see how we work this out here at the end. I created this piece, and it had shadow and everything I've planned in the beginning, but to be honest, I wasn't really able to get it the exact way I was thinking it's going to be. And sometimes the most important part is also if you realize that you have an idea, and you can tell already from my experience, you can already tell in the sketch that there is something off. The lines here are cool, but somehow this part, if I cover this part with my hand maybe, it instantly, for me at least, appears to be a nicer composition, because somehow this little part here breaks something in the whole. And I was playing around with the roots that we had here, which like the amount of roots that we have here is amazing. But still, somehow, I wasn't really able to create it exactly the way I have planned it. And then I retried it and 5, 6, 7 times until I finally realized, okay, I made a plan, but sometimes it's also important to get over the plan. So then the next 2 questions were, are the levels readable? Can you see where the levels are in this composition? Levels create depth, basically. We have a foreground. Then the foreground could be considered as the first level. That's the first thing that you look at. And then you maybe have some bigger rocks, and then you have this big branch. The fact that the branches or the tree is falling to the back creates somehow visual depth on the one hand, like what you just said. Still, it's very difficult to always create lots of layers. But we can still play around a lot by using bigger stones in the foreground. You go with like taller leaf plants in the foreground, and you get thinner and thinner and smaller in the background. So it's basically up to us to create this in a few minutes together and see how we can make the most out of it, even though the layout itself doesn't bring too much level. We have some kind of perspective, I guess. The depths we have to create a lot, by what I was just saying. We have some hardscape, obviously. There's some big things to come. The darkness might be a bit missing, but also I think when the tank is filled up and we have this big branch from the bottom right side to the top left side, there will be a lot of that. If I have a lot of like white space, then I would probably draw fish in, but the fish now here are in front of the hardscape, and it would really take long to draw fish and then draw everything around, so I basically skipped that. Besides that, I think we have some stones, which are not always important. We have some roots. We have some kind of composition, obviously. I think it's also creative to have these pictures that are not perfect to instantly use, but then bring everything to life and into good composition. I'm gonna go and give you the link again and the QR code for the second round. Please scan again. Who typed this? You typed it.
Yeah.
Why?
It climbs. It's very alive.
So it basically was inspired by the first picture?
Yeah, well,
the tree growing up?
But there were some elements in the second one, I thought.
Okay, yeah, as well.
Climbing.
Yeah. Cool.
But it doesn't have to be very dominating to have an effect. It can be only a few strands. Or you can have the massive impact. But in this case, I was thinking of just as small details.
Pretty good, pretty good. Raise your hand. Who put in moss? 3 people moss? Yes, I think it's the most important plant because all of the pictures had so much moss on it. It's a rainforest. Most of the year it's raining, not every day, but there is parts where it's raining really often. And that's also needed because all the cedar trees that you saw in the pictures, they need a lot of water to even grow that tall. So basically they have to have water. They only grow very close to on the mountains where there are bigger rivers or maybe smaller rivers, but they are constantly getting water. Otherwise, they wouldn't grow so big. And also, they are growing so big because they're growing very slow. Because in winter, like where I was, the pictures I was showing from the ancient cedar forest, the trees there are estimated about 1,400 years old. Compared to a normal tree, let's say this is the ring of a year for a normal tree. The cedars there, they are growing not this big a year, but that big a year, and you can really see. I even have this slice, and you can already see how like small the rings are. So they are growing very slowly. Otherwise, they wouldn't grow that big. Who said Bucephalus? Very interesting. Could be used for sure. Maybe we could introduce it. I didn't pick Bucephalus myself, to be honest, but I think when I saw it, I said, yeah, sure. Like looking at the pictures, totally. Also Ricardia moss. That's exactly what I choose. Anubias, Monte Carlo, also interesting because what you said about climbing, it goes also the other direction, crawling down maybe, could also be very interesting. Yeah, Fabian is great, it's the nicest plant I think. Barbetus, also very interesting. Weeping moss could be very nice. Can you explain which spots we would see it?
Yeah, a little bit like the leafers in the foreground.
Ah, okay. I think I have to see it again to remember, but it could be interesting, yeah. Do you think it would be good to keep for a long time so it looks nice for a longer time? Because I don't know, is it growing fast? Quite regularly or?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, moss is pretty good, but on the other hand, moss also needs to be trimmed quite a lot. So we had cryptocarine, yes, also big cryptocarine, the power for the foreground. I think it's very nice. Maybe from the sketch there is also some background plants, because if there is like two big branches showing most of the things, somehow I also want to fill the gaps. So I picked some plants that fulfill this, like filling the gaps. Okay, thank you. That's great. I'm wondering if I have anything there. Oh, I also have for the Monte Carlo. Was there Cuba on there? Monte Carlo I can see. So I also like to use Monte Carlo a bit further to the foreground and then Cuba a bit further in the background towards the focal point, because it's the same plant, but the different sizes make the good depth impact. As a conclusion for the plant choice, I also would like to add, especially as a look back to the 2024 layout, where I really lately introduced the Gardneria Zenkery. That was the big plant in the foreground here. You can always switch something up, take something out. If it's not working, if you feel like it's not growing in, sometimes it's also not always available. You can try something and then you take it out. Rome wasn't built on one day, and you can add more plants or work on the hardscape later, add details. Actually, because like smaller branches, they tend to dissolve sometimes very quickly. You can also, like 3 weeks before the final photo that you take for a contest, for example, or maybe if you want to like show off because you have nice guests or something, you can add some branches here and there, also temporarily. But I do that a lot before contests. I add some branches here and there and then work on your hardscape over time. Let's go and do it. Okay, thank you so much for your attention so far.